Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. Man, Batman gets all the breaks, doesn't he? He's the most marketable character, he's a billionaire, and he hogs all the claw-faced alien trophy hunters to himself. That is, until today. I'm taking issue with JLA vs. Predator, where we can only hope someone will say, "Get to the watchtower!" Let's see if this comic makes us want to turn the page, or turn our heads. The cover, if nothing else, should get your attention, with Preds dressed up as Batman, Superman, and Green Lantern, whose ring actually glows. He's got the strongest will in his space sector. Granted, it's the will to decapitate people, but that's the same reason no one's tried taking it from him. Wow, the costumes at C2E2 are getting really elaborate these days. Written by John Ostrander, with art by Graham Nolan, Randy Elliott, and James Sinclair, we begin near the League's Watchtower base, at the time located on the moon. Narration says they're about to face a threat not just to the Earth, but to the heroes themselves, as we see a ship on fire and falling from the sky. Justice League Watchtower to Dominion spacecraft. Dominion? Don't you know this is a trap? That vessel is obviously full of Jem'Hadar. Someone call Captain Sisko! John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, is on monitor duty, hailing the ship about their impending doom, but it seems to go ignored. He contacts Oracle that they're trying to teleport to Earth, but are out of range. She reminds Jean that these visitors are called Dominators for a reason. Technologically advanced and brilliant military strategists, they've tried taking over the planet before, but the Martian says they'll die if they're not transported to the tower. The ship explodes, but Jean fortunately managed to retrieve the 3 occupants. One Dominator shows gratitude by opening fire on Double M for interrupting their beam down to Earth. He goes intangible to avoid the blast, then heat visions the gun from his hand. "You attacked me, though I saved you. Among most civilized people, that is thought ungrateful."
"You are not of our race, not of my caste."
"I find your petty racism very entertaining."
"I owe you nothing, Martian Manhunter."
Awfully arrogant for a species with a naturally occurring target on their foreheads. The scared Dominator says the rescue has actually doomed them, and a quick telepathic check reveals someone aiming 3 laser dots at Jean's head. He manages to evade the shot, then goes intangible again, creating some distance so he can better determine the nature of this new intruder that he cannot mentally detect. He decides to switch to psychic communication, but is suddenly cut off from Oracle, who decides that, trap or not, she needs to rally the League. You might have noticed that the characters are introduced with these small panels and narration briefly summing up their whole deal, such as with Bats, GL, Soups. Maybe they're JLA ID badge photos, and that's why Clark looks so awkward. Bruce had the right idea. He's entirely in shadow. Someone could have drawn a mustache on his face while he took a nap on the Justice League couch, and you'd never know. Anyway, these kind of descriptors were a bit more common in comics than they are today. While I question the need for a small picture of the character when we already have them in an established panel, it can prove helpful to readers not as familiar with the team, or didn't know who exactly was on this roster. Also, I really like how Superman's response is to ask how he can help. Subtle, but it says a whole lot about the guy. The transporter from the Batcave has been knocked out, likely true for other Leaguers, so Soups and Lantern will be able to get there faster than anyone. Batman recommends contacting the rest of the team, as anything that can threaten a heavy hitter like Jean should be considered a Class A menace. "Like that little punk Dennis who keeps harassing Mr. Wilson. One day he will face justice." Oracle follows through, requesting primary and standby members to call in. We get introductions for Aquaman, Flash, Wonder Woman, Plastic Man, and the Atom, most in the middle of one thing or another, but saying they'll be along shortly. Superman and Kyle have reached the headquarters and unlocked controls, but find no one else around, until they see Jean's head impaled on a spike. And for all he pays on his health insurance, it'll only cover 2 aspirin. Kyle generates a barf bag, while Superman says he recognizes the handiwork of the Predators. Like Bruce, he's faced these hunters before, bringing up a file that includes one of their species, singing opera by the looks of it. He tells Raynor how advanced their technology is, how powerful their weapons are, their stealth capabilities, and their penchant for taking heads and spines as trophies, while lamenting the loss of one of their greatest members. The rest of Manhunter's body stumbles in as he does his best Arnim Zola impression, his torso morphed into a face so he can speak. Good thing Martians don't keep their brains in their heads. Clark grabs his noggin with a hilariously weird expression. "Can you reattach it?" Nothing little duct tape and Elmer's glue can't fix. Jones is back in one piece, though rather woozy. Apparently also familiar with predators, Jean mentions they've never had psychic abilities before, something Batman concurs as he walks in. Having teleported to the scene as soon as he was able, he begins an eye test. "How are you doing, Jean?" "Well, some alien jerks I saved shot at me, I got decapitated, and now a rich boy in a mask is shining a light in my face. How do you think I feel?" "Slight irritability. Noted." Internal sensors only show the 4 of them on the base, but it seems the 3 Dominators were each beamed to a different location on Earth, with 1 or more Preds in pursuit. Because he's the dadgum Batman, he suggests 3 teams to go after each Dominator, and bring them in for questioning, while Jean rests and coordinates. "Here's how the teams should be split up." "You're not going to put yourself on a team with all the attractive female leaguers again, are you, Bruce?" "No." "Yes." The first team is Aquaman, Wonder Woman, and Plastic Man, the latter acting as a gondola in Venice. Diana is mentioning how romantic the city is, but Blondie just notes how mildly less sewer-like the water is from his last visit.
"Arthur, I'm talking about romance, and you're giving me a water analysis."
Now you might be asking, isn't Aquaman married to Mira? Isn't Wendy crossing a line? To put it succinctly, pre-Flashpoint Mira went a little bonkers after the death of her and Artie's son, blamed him for it, and left for her home of Zebel, which was in another dimension at the time. She did return and reconcile with him in the final issue of Aquaman Volume 5, which came out about a month before this one-shot, so maybe it's set before her return, and Diana isn't being totally inappropriate. Plaz sees something in the water and avoids it, with Wendy leaping clear and Arthur submerging to confront whatever it was, only to be attacked by something moving like a rocket. The Amazon warns people to get out, in English, despite this being Italy, but loses sight of her friends when she's attacked by an invisible enemy. She tries flying away to draw it somewhere without innocent bystanders, but this predator has its own lasso, one that electrocutes Diana, giving her a stupid haircut and dropping her to the ground, and we see an enemy in gold-colored armor with a W on it. Plastic Man is in a one-sided dogfight with a Pred imitating his powers and looking only mildly less goofy. Aquaman narrowly dodges a blast thanks to seeing the 3 laser dots, and having noticed the beam's point of origin, charges at his cloaked opponent, hoping to take out his stealth device. He ends up damaging the controls to the Predator's radio headset. Now it's stuck on a station that only plays Kids Bop covers, making him instantly regret going on this superhuman hunt in the first place. Diana has grabbed her opponent's whip, announcing her actions as she pulls him closer to her so she can hit what she can't see. Except the Pred isn't cloaked, and there's no indication that anything was done to blind Wonder Woman, so I don't know what she's talking about. Though she does mention that she couldn't put much strength into that punch and is losing the will to fight, uncertain of what's happening to her. Fortunately, Plastic Man comes in with a saving grab, having found their Dominator, and now only needing to find Arthur so they can head back to base.
"And I got a shape-changing predator all over my butt!"
Pretty sure they have topical ointments that'll clear that right up, dude. Curry shoots out of the water like he's performing at SeaWorld, though by that crack effect, maybe he's been punched to the surface? Anyway, he's taking the jaw front seat as Plaz gets them out of Italian dodge. Pursued by Diana's opponent, riding the shapeshifter, taking the form of a kind of flying motorcycle, O'Brien calls for Jean to make like Scotty and beam them up, but the Manhunter is unresponsive to his pleas. He addresses a predator that never left the watchtower as we go to the Amazon jungle, near an ancient temple where Green Lantern, Atom, and Flash have been sent, and the latter finds the Dominator in an instant.
"Show off!"
"Hey, you weren't complaining when I won our team that Easter egg hunt. All those 10-year-olds were pretty upset, but the point is, I got us that plastic bunny trophy." They're suddenly attacked by opponents too quick or too hidden to be seen, until the splash page of 3 more color-coordinated predators mimicking their powers. Sheesh, they'll let anyone become a Power Ranger these days. It's unusual for predators to attack in groups, but since they aren't acting like the JLA files suggest, the heroes split up, and Kyle looks like he really needs to find a bathroom. That feeling probably only gets worse when his Pred dissipates one of his constructs, which was surprising because he didn't think his ring had any weaknesses.
Well, you fooled me, buddy.
Adam notices how they seem keyed in to each Leaguer's own abilities, and lures his foe to subatomic size. One hit with a positive electron, and the Pred's equipment shorts out, with Palmer going on the offensive as they return to normal size. "Hey, Adam! I keep hitting this guy, but he doesn't go down. Any other ideas? Hit him some more!" Ah, I see Dr. Palmer is also a graduate of the Dragon Ball School of Fighting Difficult Opponents. Wally has already taken 2 hits from his leg-powered Pred, unsure how he's matching the fastest man alive. He grabs the Dominator and calls Jean for a beam-out, and gets no response. They said Martian Manhunter's fixation on watching The Young and the Restless would get people killed one day, but did he listen? No. Jean can hear him, telepathically saying he's a little busy right now, but it'll get to him as soon as he can. We jump elsewhere. England, the Lake District on the northwest coast, just below Scotland, a place of inestimable beauty. Mountains, green fields, deep lakes. Ordinarily, a quiet and peaceful area. That will change. We're gonna build a Walmart, and next to that, another Walmart. Then, maybe a hybrid gas station / Starbucks. Then another Walmart! While their allies are being hunted, Clark and Bruce have a nice chat about how Beatrix Potter, creator of Peter Rabbit, used her book profits to buy up farmland and ensured they wouldn't be developed on. While kind of an odd deviation in a story about merciless space hunters, it is kind of a nice moment between two friends, and how they can still learn new things about each other. Soups nabs the Dominator from his hiding spot, only to be attacked from behind, and tells Batman to take their quarry and go. And he does so, while being watched from the shadows. Superman finally gets a look at his own doppelganger predator. Doppelraider? Predadoppler? Anyway, he takes the fight to the sky while Bats misses being shot in the back of the head at the last second, and his own opponent about to get the drop on him. So, where is it now? Where's the Predator? And why do I have the feeling the phrase, "now you know how it feels," is going to apply to me in the very near future? Jean has finally gotten around to transporting his teammates back to the watchtower, and there's this really nice detail that, the second he arrived, Flash put the Dominator he found into a containment unit. Really cool example of his speed and quick thinking. Anyway, when asked what the holdup was, he points them to his own Pred, either dead or incapacitated, I can't tell. He had to be dealt with to ensure the base was secure. So, with that settled, Batman demands answers from the Dominators, like why they came to Earth in the first place. Turns out it was to ask for the League's protection. They managed to capture some predators on a Dominion-controlled moon and clone them with modified DNA designed to kill the JLA for always thwarting their plans. But when the meta-predators woke up, they proceeded to kill everyone in the facility, except these 3. You know, the ones that were just targets of a superhero scavenger hunt. The Dominators came to Earth in hopes that the Hunters' instincts would lead them to go after the League. So when you said you wanted the League's protection, what you meant was you wanted them to be some tasty meat to throw your murderous creations off your trail. But for this antagonistic species and their language, that could be potato-potato. With the more knowledge of their opponents and home field advantage, Bats likes their odds, but Superman detects their enemies have already arrived, and the Metapreds make themselves known. Hey, Bruce, you want to do your usual solo act and handle all these guys on your own like you have the last 3 times? On a 2-page spread, the yellow-powered one intended for Green Lantern fires an energy blast, apparently bypassing Kyle's shield and hitting Aquaman's arm. But it doesn't seem to hurt him very much. The Atlantean King suggests they swap opponents, figuring they'll be less effective on Leaguers they weren't designed to face. Kyle fighting the Atom Pred, Diana going after Plastic Man's opponent, and so on. Now, if you're thinking that's a little ludicrous, given the varying power sets, Superman is way ahead of you, on the second 2-pager, taking on his own Dupla Pred, while the others take on differently powered foes. Kinda makes sense, except Batman just dodging a speedster. Yeah, he's Batman, he's prepared, but this wasn't him using some gadget. He took on the fastest Predator alive by jumping on him like this was a Super Mario's game. Wonder Woman would have made more sense, since she does have some super speed, but this? Plastic Man should be jealous of how much of a stretch this is. After Wonder Pred falls, Leaguers have more breathing room to start helping each other take the rest down. Gee, I hope that wasn't a load-bearing pillar inside the superhero base on the moon. And note how Aquaman deals a knockout punch to his own Predator, tying with John and helping take out 3 monsters. Most of the others just got 2 at most. There's 1 left, and Superman, with a large version of his emblem in the background, fuchsia is an odd choice, but moving on, punches his foe into the ground, leaving all the Metapreds defeated. But Clark hasn't forgotten that these hunters have a habit of self-destructing rather than surrender, as his foe activates a shoulder cannon. He lasts a hole in the wall, and while Plaz, Clark, and GL managed to save the Dominators and seal the breach, the Meta-Predators were all pulled through, into the vacuum of the infinite cosmos. And Superman looks oddly grumpy. I wanted to hurl them into space. Stupid jerk faces with the faces of jerks.
Okay then, I guess just pout.
Later, the JLA have preset a ship with coordinates back to the Dominion homeworld, and Martian Manhunter has implanted a telepathic command preventing the 3 occupants from trying to change course. One of the Dominators speaks up, asking why the League saved the ones that sought to destroy them, even though they could refine the genetic engineering and create more powerful predators that could succeed in killing them. Superman explains it's what the team does. All life is worth preserving, and they would have saved the Preds if they could have. The Dominator still doesn't understand, and the comic ends as they take off, with Clark saying that perhaps he will one day. Perhaps that revelation will help change his people, because the future is built on hope. And we hope we don't see that ship for sale on eBay. That was JLA vs. Predators, a fun read that I very much enjoyed, but isn't without its flaws. If you're looking for anything particularly graphic, as we saw in some of the Batman vs. Predator stories, you'll be sorely lacking. Part of that is because the enemy was inextricably drawn to characters that don't bleed easy, for one reason or another. Yeah, Jean was decapitated, but the impact is a little lessened because he's an alien polymorph. It sounds like a really neat idea. Have the League face off against primal hunters with powers to match their own, and they don't all just lose outright. Aquaman and Atom gain the upper hand or outmaneuver their Preds really well, giving them moments to shine. Though I expected there to be some kind of explanation as to why Diana got so weak when she first fought hers, like maybe she'd been affected by gas or poison, but no such explanation was ever given. She has the lasso of truth, so did her alien opposite number have the electric whip of fatigue? There's also the question of how they powered the anti-lantern Predator. This was before the Sinestro Corps or any other emotional spectrum lanterns came about, and almost a decade after Green Lanterns lost the weakness to the color yellow. So how exactly did the Dominators genetically manipulate that one's powers to counter what would actually be the Ring and not Raynor? Heck, for that matter, isn't it lucky that these evil space scientists chose the exact right powers to match the League's roster at the same time? Or that the same Leaguers looking for the Dominators would also encounter their exact Pred counterparts? That's an even more wild coincidence. And for that matter, it's only these 8 heroes we see, even though standby members were supposed to check in as well. You'd think that with all the trouble even one of these hunters gave Batman just the first go-around, they'd have wanted every frickin' hero on Earth at the ready. Either Bruce's stubbornness was rubbing off on everyone else, or the reserve JLAers all coincidentally took their vacations at the same time. To other planets. I thought the art was good, no real problems or errors that I could see, except that some situations didn't seem as visually detailed. You barely see Diana's feet as she jumps from the Plaz gondola in Venice, and the Metapreds being pulled into space is tucked away into the corner of one panel, so you almost miss it. Most of the initial fights, I thought, were done really well, but the final confrontation felt less represented. Of course, teamwork was going to win the day, but even before there was a chance for that, some of those switched matchups felt a tad odd. Batman versus someone that can match the Flash, and a Predator no less, seems about as one-sided as Storm fighting Wonder Woman. And like that fight, the logical loser manages to come out on top. I might have liked to have seen more of Superman versus Super Pred, but maybe just like with seeing Batman versus Bat Pred, someone felt that given their existing crossovers already, it was unnecessary. The characters seemed very on point, good interactions and moments of levity that felt very natural. None of them felt dumber than they should be, forgetting what they can do, but actually felt overwhelmed by these threats that they previously probably only read or heard about. The dialogue could venture into explaining what we're seeing on panel territory, and I thought maybe the opening narration about the League being the targets unnecessarily gave away what was going on. The story would have revealed that just fine as it progressed. If you haven't read previous Predator crossovers, or the comics, which I can only imagine are more graphic, this might feel overly tame. It's got a good story that vibes really well with the main title of the time. It wasn't terribly complex, and it didn't need to be. Though I can't help feeling that, given the kind of threats the Preds have been shown to be in previous stories I reviewed, this one didn't have quite as much meat on its proverbial bones. But maybe it was so younger readers could enjoy it. Again, except for Manhunter getting spiked through the noggin. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.